I choose not to. Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening. And I was trying to get my video through. I don't really like to show my face and to parade myself and, you know, act like I'm famous or anything like that. So I don't reveal myself. I'd rather talk about the things that are, you know, important about social issues or just random issues, and then some things that are, political, and well, most things that are political, and then, things that might be cultural. So I don't really get into like trying to be famous or anything or trying to be well known. But I did look at an article, and yes, I'd like to wish everybody a happy weekend. Those that celebrate and those who don't celebrate, just have a relaxing weekend. So I'm mindful of that. But moving along, I was looking through the Los Angeles Times again. This time I tried to switch gears a little bit here, and I was looking in the business section, which I'm also interested in. Not opening a business per se, but every now and then I will look in the business section. And so I noticed that with Los Angeles, there's a lot of talk, even outside of Los Angeles and California. There is a lot of talk, around in USA cities, or just places where Black people reside, where people of color, or people, even if you are not Black or you're a person in the category of people who are interested in politics or what have you, that China has put the brakes on overseas investments, and Los Angeles development boom takes a hit. And so a lot of times we'll hear the topics talking about regentrification, and, some businesses thrive and others don't, and what it takes to be an entrepreneur and get involved in the world of business. So I did notice what I thought was really important here. If you look at my title, it's Money Invested on the Wealthy is Rich People Living a Wealthy Lifestyle or a Rich Lifestyle. And I noticed that happens a lot. And the reason I'm saying this is, as China puts the brakes on overseas investment, Los Angeles development boom takes a hit. This is by Roger Vincent, and this was put out April 1st, 2018. And I know this is a very big switch from a lot of the things that I usually normally talk about, but I do, despite some of the controversies that go on in the surrounding cities and neighborhoods and local neighborhoods, I do think about business stuff. Last year, Chinese investors invested in buying or developing property in Southern California, peppered World Trade Center, Los Angeles officials with questions about how best to break into the market. And so a lot of times, with this being said this way, it got my mind just rolling about how people always talk about, well, why don't we have a chance to open up businesses and communities and what have you? From what I've known, it takes money to make money in terms of business. And so here you can see people already have money invested in companies, or they already have a lump sum of money somehow, and it benefits them in so many different ways. And a lot of times people have brought up the topics on Asian immigrants and why they were so successful in opening up businesses. So I just wanted to read this article because I wanted to make clear that this is not something new, that this has happened, and that it benefits in two ways. And I'm going to put this out here in this article just by reading it. If you really listen to what's going on here, that there's a lot of trade invested in Asian companies, trading. And so a lot of money involved in Asian investors. And so I'm going to read this. So last year's Chinese investors interested in buying or developing property in Southern California peppered World Trade Center Los Angeles officials with questions about how best to break into the market. So what the difference between the city governments and county governments, they might ask, or are tax incentives or hotel builders better in Los Angeles or Santa Monica? Those are questions. So, but daily questions such as those have nearly ceased as China's feared pullback from overseas investments have been borne out. So Stephen Chung, president of the nonprofit agency that promotes internal trade and business, said that the agency is now getting about one request a month for guidance. And so there's been a lot of businesses that are been all over the place. And like I paid close attention even in Cape Town. Cape Town was really small. And then over the a period of years, I noticed they had grown and grown and got bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, this article pretty much sums it up for me. And so I kind of already felt that this was going on long before. You know, if you look at movies, if you look at documentaries, if you look at anything having to do with business and in people who invest in even places where they're going to lay their trade of whatever they're going to do in terms of bringing in money, that's where it is. And they already have to have an idea of why they're going to do what they're going to do, what's happening in the climate of that area. And so I want to bring up a couple of issues, but more importantly, that this article really sums up what's been going on just in Los Angeles, in Los Angeles City alone, Los Angeles County. So our time is used to be donated or dominated, and in other words, dominated. Let me say this again so that you understand this. Our time used to be dominated by Chinese interests because of the billions of dollars flowing in from China alone, from said Chung. So who once helped a company that wanted to enter the LA market and instead mistakenly signed a memorandum of understanding with Pasadena. And so it goes on to say that Chinese companies have been among the biggest commercial real estate investors in LA area for the past 5 years, spending more than $5 billion to buy property in the region during that time, according to a brokerage Cushman and Wakefield. So it goes on to read that includes the sites of billion-dollar condominiums, hotels, and retail complexes being built downtown and larger airport areas hotels that have been upgraded by the Chinese owners. Dare I read that again? Chinese companies have been among the biggest commercial real estate and estate investors. Let me read that one more time. Chinese companies have been among the biggest commercial real estate investors in the Los Angeles area in the last 5 years, spending more than $5 billion to buy property in the region during that time, according to the brokerage Cushman and Wakefield. That includes the sites of billion-dollar condominiums, hotels, and retail complexes being built downtown LA and large airport area hotels that have been upgraded by Chinese owners. But they are withdrawing from some high-profile ventures as lenders in Beijing constrict the flow of money out of the country. In August, China's State Council laid down new regulations on outbound investments to reduce the risk of runaway debt and to blunt capital flight. Also, dramatically on the wane is Chinese investment through the federal EB-5 program. Let me say that again. It's a federal EB-5 program, which allows foreigners to apply to become legal U.S. residents or citizens, residents, in exchange for investing $500,000 or more in a business that creates or preserves at least 10 jobs. Let me read this line again, or this paragraph. Also dramatically on the wane is Chinese investment through the federal EB-5 program, which allows foreigners to apply to become legal U.S. residents, legal citizen, in exchange for investing $500,000 or more in a business that creates or preserves at least 10 jobs. Millions of dollars raised by individual Chinese investors angling for green cards in past years have paid for such major projects as Trendy Dream Hotel Complex in Hollywood and Courtyard Los Angeles, LA Live downtown Los Angeles. There has been a huge fall off in the EB-5 funding, said LA attorney Jim Butler, who helps arrange investments from overseas through the program. So this is the Chinese investment in property in the US in the billions. This is 20 billion in the top and on down 15 to 10 to 5 to 0 and point whatever billion. And so you can go through at the bottom of the graph, there's years from 2011 to now. And so you can see where there's been a drop, 7.3 billion. And so money is there, folks. It's invested in what investment is calling for, depending on how it benefits individuals. So the EB-5 funds from China has fallen off 28% of their normal flow established over the 3 previous years, Butler has said, citing data NES Financial. So part of the decline in EB-5 investment can be traced to an uncertainty over the program's future, which has been linked to various frauds and was reauthorized by Congress in the new federal budget billion only until September 30th. And so, but the broader rapid retreat of Chinese capital in the recent months is being imposed by Beijing, Butler said. So in a recent report, Cushman & Wakefield estimated 55% in Chinese investment in the U.S. commercial real estate that took place in 2017, falling to about 7.3 billion from 16.2 billion in 2016. So in the LA metropolitan area, property acquisitions by Chinese investors declined 67% that time period, even though overall investment volume fell just 1%. So there also has been a significant shift in the type of Chinese investors buying property in the LA area, Cushman & Wakefield broker Mark Renard said. So previously the capital, I'm reading as I'm looking, I'm reading at the same time and then talking. So previously the capital was primarily from the large state-controlled conglomerates, he said. So today it is, for the most part, a very high net worth individuals. And so look at this structure here. This is something that is a condominium complex that's supposed to be in Beverly Hills. Okay. Dalian Wanda has put on the market this condominium right here, this complex, at rendering this proposed at 1.2 billion luxury condominium complex. Okay. So it's on the market right now. So one of the most notable pullbacks has been the Beijing-based Dalian Wanda Group, one of the China's largest private companies. It is looking to sell 8 acres of land on the Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly Hills that is widely regarded as one of the most desirable development sites in the country. The land formerly occupied by Robinson's May store sits next to a Beverly Hilton and recently completed Waldorf Astoria Hotel. And so it was approved for construction of 1.2 billion luxury condominium hotel complex called One Beverly Hills, designed by owned architect Richard Neer. So Wanda Group spokesman declined to comment on the planned sale. Wanda purchased the site for about 420 million in 2014, but was not broken. It had not broken ground. So look at this right here. This is rendering a 1 billion metropolis condominium hotel and retail complex upon completion. And this is Greenland, USA. Okay. I don't know if this is a paper, Greenland, USA, or if this is a city. So, but it just has it in quotes. Well, it has it in what you call brackets. So Chinese mega developer Greenland USA, the company, recently started shopping around two key buildings in its 1 billion metropolis complex in the downtown Los Angeles area. And so the Hotel Indigo, that's what it is, because I know it, I recognize seeing this. It looks familiar, the floor plan of it. Because sometimes they'll put signs out in front of buildings letting you know when they're doing construction on something that this is what it's going to future look like or whatever. So the Hotel Indigo and the 56-story condo tower 3, which is still under construction. So I believe I've seen this sign. Whether Greenland ultimately sells depends on how much buyers are willing to pay, said Hu Gang. So the chief executive of Greenland USA, he is Hu Yang. So the potential for any future sale, Hotel Indigo or Condo Tower 3, would be decided based on the ebb and flow of the real estate market and the strength of the offer, Hu said in a statement. The first two condominium towers in the metropolis has attracted strong interest from buyers who said units are selling for more than, listen to this, 1,000 per square foot, according to the real estate market company Marco. And so it goes on to read that Greenland will finish the second tower this year, who said this is committed to completing the third tower in the early of 2019. It's unusual to sell a skyscraper under construction, but not unheard of in a hot market. Sales of the units in the third tower have not begun. Still, the speed of the China's retreat is unusual for the U.S. real estate markets, which typically shift at a more stately pace, said Michael Soto, research manager at the real estate company Transwestern. Companies have obviously been ordered by the government to sell off or dispose of foreign properties, he said. This is state-directed capitalism at work. Otherwise, why are you selling this stuff so soon after it's been acquired or is still being built? So he in quotes said this is state-directed capitalism at work. And so a lot of people have been questioning, you know, we have this issue of homelessness and a lot of people don't have places to live. And here you got all this money being negotiated and renegotiated and taken away and put back and invested in and taken out of companies, put back in companies and set up for a rainy day. And money is where it is. It's out there. It's not like there's a scarcity of money. It's just people who have it put it in what they want to put it in or invested in what they want to invest it in. And so a lot of money is being discussed over who's going to buy property, who's going to invest in property, who's going to invest in certain ventures in certain local cities or, you know, cities that they feel that are going to bring in revenue basically and attract the money. It's like go where the money is. And so always in the downtown hubs, like you see there's people who have like the eateries, the restaurants, the coffee and the bistros and the clubs. And they're basically, I've told in previous videos that they're just transforming the Los Angeles downtown area into like Little Manhattan, or like actually it's going to be even more glamorous. It's starting to become another entity in and of itself, where it's going to be like Hollywood and Hollywood Part Two, you know, where there's lights and action and nothing sleeps. And so here it goes on to say the slowdown in Chinese investment here differs from the hard exit by Japanese landlords in the early 1990s who dropped many of their prominent U.S. properties back on the market. Soto said Japanese bought trophy properties at the part or at the peak of the market in the late 1980s, and they were forced to unload at a loss of a few years later when the economies in both countries had dipped. So usually people who are investors, they go where the money is. People who are about money go where their money is. And then if the money isn't there, then they kind of drop off or fall off because of whatever reason or whatever they've been told, or if they feel like there's no money in it, or money is going to decline because of something happening in that particular neighborhood or that area, or that maybe that there's a shift in culture, a shift in trend, a shift in whatever it is that sparks that boom in money. That's the way people usually think. So these are longer term projects with longer outlooks, Soto said, of the Chinese developments, and most of the major Chinese investments in the region has been in buying and upgrading existing hotels such as LA Airport, Marriott, Sheraton, Gateway, Los Angeles, and prominent sites like mixed-use developments, Beverly Hills and downtown LA, most of which is still foregoing. So there's a lot of redeveloping. And so this right here is what I wanted to get into. Look at this right here. Do you see on the side of this, there's a huge screen. It's an LED screen. That's how big that screen is, full of action and movement. And this is going to be a big deal. Rendering of 1 billion ocean-wide plaza on Figueroa Street in the downtown LA area. It's something they are working on right now, and it's supposed to be big. So one of the largest developments underway in the Oceanwide Plaza is a mixed-use project on Figueroa Street across from the Staples Center that will include a Park Hyatt hotel, more than 500 luxury condominiums, along with shops and restaurants. Beijing-based conglomerate Oceanwide Holdings has fully funded the $1 billion project, Thomas Fang, chief executive of Oceanwide Plaza, it's called Oceanwide Plaza on Figueroa, said this in a statement that this is going to be happening. So the project, featuring a 700-foot outdoor LED screen stretching its length to set for a completion at the end of next year, 2019. Other major Chinese projects are also apparently still on track in the downtown of LA. So a planned $700 million condominium W Hotel complex on Figueroa Street and Lowland Boulevard by Shenzhen Hazen's real estate group has nearly completed the city approval process. This is coming up. A rendering of 1 billion Grand Avenue project on Bunker Hill also, which recently received some Chinese funding. This is coming up. Do you see how the building is set? Sort of like set, you know, like building blocks. And so that's coming up. And then a $1 billion Grand Avenue project on Bunker Hill designed by architect Frank Gehry is set to begin construction in the fall, funded in part with $290 million from a subsidiary of China Communication Construction Group, one of China's largest state-owned companies. Indeed, Cushman & Wakefield in its recent report predicted Chinese capital will continue to be a force in the U.S. real estate markets. Let me read that again. Indeed, Cushman and Wakefield in its recent report predicted Chinese capital will be and will continue to be a force in the U.S. real estate markets. Jim Costello of the Real Capital Analytics said that even though Chinese investors continue to pull back on new investments, they are not bailing out of a mass and are still buying more than they are selling. But he added Beijing has asked certain companies to pull back so that they won't be as active in the near term. There will be more selling. And there will be more selling. So some property owners may sell simply out of prudence, and he believes instead of the response to the government fiat. Just because you aren't a state-owned company doesn't mean you are immune from social pressure to reduce financial risk, he said. Sometimes a suggestion can be just as important as regulation. And so I believe too, they're trying to be safe because there's so much invested in companies here in the US with China investors. They're trying to also be safe that they don't fold, because you know how something sounds good and it may be too good to be true, and it probably is. And so it depends on how big that company needed, and then on who's going to actually partake in what they've invested in. If they open up all these condominiums, all these sites and whatever, is it going to be something that's going to be lucrative? Is it going to be something that's going to be where they're going to continuously bring in revenue? Or is it going to be some big, huge building that's all this space, but you don't have enough people that are investing money in it and that are actually buying into it, that are living in the condos? First of all, who can afford that? Not very many. Right now, with what's going on in this world today, that might be why, seeing all of what they're seeing, they might be seeing all this homelessness, thinking, well, if we put all these big high-rise luxury condominiums in these places and people can't afford them, what's the use of doing and putting money into a place where people can't even purchase our business? They can't even buy into it. So we're not going to make money. It's just going to be open lot, open space, and we're wasting money. So we're going to protect ourselves. And that might be one reason. Also, too, think of what's going on, all this chaos going on, and then they don't know. Is it worth it? Is it worth putting the money in? Are people really going to move into this? Is it going to bring the money? Is this where the money is going to be? Too, like with the big stadiums that are coming. So maybe they're looking at that as a business venture. They're including that. They're saying, well, if a lot of people are going to be going to these stadiums, they're opening up the football stadium, they're opening up what could be the Star Wars Museum, they're opening up all these things that brings the money, that will bring in money, and therefore it'll bring in people with money. So people with money will want to be where the money is and where places are that are really spectacular and that are a hotbed of a lot of people, a lot of tourists, and a lot of money flowing. And so that's what they want to do, is constantly keep the blood flowing of the money. So if that's not happening, then they're not going to go there, or they're not going to put that much interest in it. Depends. But usually with what I know is for how they work with their businesses, they start off small and then it gradually gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so they draw in more customers with something small, and then it just tends to take off like wildfire and grow. But then that is not including if you get a shift in cultural move, like where you have people from out of the country that will come and visit these places, and then they have the money, and then they will decide to join in or either move to Los Angeles. Maybe they decide, I want to move here. Or maybe there are people that live further out in California and they want to move into the LA basin because that's where they can, instead of taking an hour in the morning to get ready and then another hour to get on the freeway and get to work. They live right there close to where they work. And then they have the Staples Center, and then they have these hotels. There's these condominiums. And if they're making like really nice income, 6 figures or more, they can purchase one of those lofts or one of those places, and then they can walk to where they have to. We have people down there who work there. They walk to where they have to go. I kind of feel like it is sort of like New York-ish, but slash West Coast. It's like a little melting pot. It's got sort of East Coast, West Coast flavor in there. And then you've got these people who have like lots of money. And so I believe that's what they're going on to. The Staples Center has Lakers and, all of the teams. And so that's what they're looking at. And people who are investors, they think about, okay, what's the interest there? What are the businesses there? What are the people there? And so that's probably why they're looking at it. And, okay, is there crime there? What kind of problems are there? What could hinder our businesses? What could bring away or take away from our businesses? The homeless population? Is it a hotbed for crime? Is there a drug element going on down there? Is it going to be a high organized situation where people will get robbed or, but then they're opening up this Metrolink. And so, but when you have people pulling out, they might be a little bit in fear because of, I'm just throwing out straws here. There may be a fear of chaos because of the homelessness, some of the political issues that have been brought about more recently. And downtown was primarily, you have like some people who are homeless. Tent Cities and the Stragglers and Skid Row is not very far from those nice areas. And so you'd have to have a lot of police patrol, and then you don't know what could break out if people would retaliate or get upset because they have these businesses, yet they pulled out of the smaller communities and just put all their money in these areas that are just flowing with money. And so it seems as though they're building their own metropolis and pushing all of the poor on the outskirts. And so they're looking at all of this and they're trying to say, okay, is this worth it? Or is this going to be a problem? Or is it going to decline over, who is moving in the area? What's bringing about the money flow? So they're probably looking at a whole wide range of this. But anyway, this is entitled in the article in it's of itself, I thought was interesting because it's in the business. And I thought this building is, wow, it's just amazing. Look at this. Look at how big it is. It's huge. This whole thing, a screen. You're going to have to really, really pay attention to the road because already now in the downtown area, they have some LED screens. I don't know if you know what those are. Some people do. Just like in New York, they have those big screens and those lights where you can see people talking and everything. And it just kind of like takes your mind off the road. For a minute, you have to check yourself like, okay, pay attention to the road, pay attention to your driving. You're looking up at the LED screen, they're like, wow, it just grabs at you. And, because it's so bright, it's so clear, and there's so much going on. It's talking about movies, upcoming shows, and it just brings even people who don't have a lot of money, it just brings you in. It's like, okay, how can I benefit from this? To probably people who don't make a lot of money will look at this as an avenue, are there any job opportunities? And so that might also make people think, well, maybe they could get hired in one of these places here. And so it could work several ways. It could be something where people don't like it, or it could be something where people will welcome it in the event that it includes them some kind of way in helping them be able to be successful or be a part of this whole arena. So maybe they don't make 6 figures, but can they get hired in this? Can they work here? Can they be hotel staff? But whom are they hiring? And so that brings up also political issues. So maybe if you think about some of the past incidences from the 1992 riots, maybe some of these investors are thinking about, well, in the past we have had some incidences that have happened with, people of different backgrounds, feeling as though that we're taking advantage of their cities because we're just basically in it for the money and we're not really hiring certain groups of folks. So they might be pulling out because of those reasons, because all this stuff that's coming out in the news with people getting killed by police, some of the social issues. I'm sure that investors, they look at all of the whole broad picture of everything to see if anything is going to hinder on their business venture. And so, do they think people are really going to put money in these companies if they feel that it doesn't benefit them and it's just for the rich? And so that could be another reason. Or maybe they don't care. Maybe they feel like if it is for the rich, then that's what we want it to be intended for. So we can just cater to the wealthy and then we can get money back from the wealthy and then it bounces back and forth, however it need be. So it could be a whole nother arena going on, but I thought it was interesting. So the title of the article, it's in Los Angeles Times in the business section, and it was entitled that China puts the brakes on overseas investments. LA development boom takes a hit. And so there has been a lot of redevelopment here. There has been a lot of condominiums. There are some buildings that still being built as we speak, and you see the cranes and you see the workmen during the week trying to get them together. And so that is the big growing question that people have had. Okay, what is this going to be? And so I think this article kind of sums it up in somewhat. It lets you know what the framework of a lot of these projects in the downtown area are going to be geared towards. And so I think that's important, especially when a lot of people were talking about, well, how do we fit in this? Are they pushing out the poor and all of this? And so a lot of times when people are about money, that's what it's about. It's about money. It's about investing. It's about keeping money within that arena of money, go where the money is. And so there could be a number of things that they're reasoning or grappling with to decide what they're going to do. Now, I know the convention center, they hold a lot of events. They have a lot of space. They rent spaces out for people who are having like meetings or parties or get-togethers. But what's a huge building and you have nobody that's willing to want to come in and do anything with it? And so the only reason why that they would be making all of these accommodations is because there's something big happening already, or there's something more big happening, even more so than what's happening now. And so that might have to do with the reason why there's so much push to move out people who don't have that much money, or smaller income living people, because there's something big that they're looking at and they're trying to invest in, and it's coming, and there's wavering. Some people are wanting in and some people are wavering in between, sort of in that gray area, and then others are just like, nah, I don't want to risk this because of all of the politics and a lot of the social issues that are going on. And so some people will wait it out to see what happens. And then if it looks like fair game, then they'll go ahead and put their money in there. It's like taking a big risk, a gamble on whether this is going to work. And so I did hear that they were considering building a museum, a Star Wars museum, since Star Wars is such, they had all these different trilogies and whatnot. They were talking about building a museum. They have a couple of museums out this way, but they also were talking about building a lot of other things that seemed to me, I already know they built a soccer stadium. And so it seems like this whole California, here in the Los Angeles area, it seems like a sports city. So a lot of the stadiums and Inglewood, the football, everything is so like Pasadena has the Rose Bowl. It's like all of this, they're like sister cities, if you would. And so it seems to me like it's a big arena to be what you would say the sports cities. And so with sports brings in money and people with money and people who are willing to gamble, people who are willing to come and spend their money and sit and watch the game, people who are fans. And so that brings money, brings revenue, it brings jobs as well. Um, so they're probably looking at that whole big spectrum of it all. Um, so what better way to invest in money than to see something and see a vision and say, well, they've got this going on over here and over here, but downtown, if we just build it up and scale it up, even upscale it up more, then just think of what we could do with this. But meanwhile, you have these people who are struggling, trying to find places to live. You have the drug problems, and then you have people who are trying to make ends meet and they can barely pay their bills, and they're not that far away from being on Skid Row themselves. And so they might be looking at all of these things because a lot of people have been talking about it. Some of all these horrific incidences that have happened in terms of violence and brutality and whatnot. But if you want to withdraw yourself from those environments and say, I just want to be about the money and just focus on my business ventures, I don't have to really worry about some of the social issues. Those things are going to happen regardless whether I invest my money in this project or not. They may be looking at it in that fashion as well. Some people are very oriented about the money. So I thought this was a really good article because a lot of people are looking at some of the crazy things that are going on. But, when people are thinking about one track of, I'm going to build this, I'm going to create this, I'm going to do this, they don't let anything stop them or get in their way, even if it is some of the craziness that we're hearing about. They try to continue on as business as usual. And so this might be a trait in this group of people that are investors that feel like, I'm just going to basically spend my money on things that are going to work and things that are going to move money and that are going to reinvigorate and bring in money flow. And so that means, even if that means you have to shut yourself out of the other social issues that are going on, then so be it. And so with that right there, this is the article, Los Angeles Times, and that could explain why you have people who are very driven, very money driven. And so this is an example right here. You see this LED light. You ever driven by a building and you see something going on, looks like a large, giant, big screen theater TV, and it just draws your attention and you got really pay attention to the road. Well, imagine that tenfold, like even larger than life, like to the point where it's something so big that you just can't escape it. It's all wrapped around the building. So that's the projects they're working on. That's just one of the projects, and not the only. There's many that I had mentioned, and condominiums and things like that. And I know some people say that's unfortunate because it just only centers around people who are making like upper and higher level income. But just look at this graph here. But you do see a huge drop in 2017. There was a dip. And so there's a lot of question marks as to why is that. And so I just kind of threw it out there what my my opinion was, because of the social issues that are going on and the homelessness, those could be some of the things that, people don't want that around their business. They don't want that problem. They don't want to be labeled as, you're the reason why you're pulling money out of the smaller communities. But, when people are that high up and they feel like they're going to be endorsed by other wealthy people, that may just not even really deter them from going ahead and doing what they set out to do anyway, despite all of the social problems that plague certain smaller neighborhoods and cities. So that might be the goal. Maybe they feel like they're going to take a stand in another way and resist, where they're going to use money to price people out of certain areas. And so, with that being said, I will leave this. Like, comment, subscribe. And this is Money Invested on the Wealthy is Rich People Living the Rich Lifestyle. Nice lattes, cafes, restaurants, bistros, shows, skybox areas. If you just like go online and try to put in, in the Staples Center, the best seats to see the Lakers, most people that have like a regular working income, that are not making six figures, could not afford that. And so this is the people that they're looking at, they want coming into those neighborhoods, in those areas, those arenas, and those cities. And so thank you for listening.